Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News, and the fairy tale storyline for Sentinels over the last few days has come to an end. They were on the verge of getting to playoffs but did not quite get the result they wanted from G2. Lots of reaction as a result, understandably so. The players on Sentinels deeply frustrated with both G2 and with Loud for not getting the job done cleaner, but maybe they should be frustrated with the format preventing them getting to the playoffs when maybe there was a better option here. What does this mean for Shanghai going forward as well? Very much interested to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Firstly, on EMEA, Mini has just been spotted this morning, having been added to Fnatic with a 2024 contract. Now, Mini says, as far as I know, this is because I was asked to become a reserve player for the team, which required me to join the database. So, yeah, possibly nothing crazy in this, but there is a feeling that maybe Fnatic might need something in terms of a coaching staff changing situation. We know that their team hasn't been as good this season as last year. Nobody is denying that. The playoffs, of course, are them starting in a couple of days. Elmer Putty has come in. Mini has taken a step back. Is it because Mini's taken a step back to assistant coach they've fallen off? I don't think so. I think there's more to it. But Mini potentially returning and then begging him to come back on a full-time capacity is maybe not the worst idea ever. Just a few stats here as well from EMEA. Safe was having some comments on this because you might expect some of the first blood stats to be on Jet, on Raze, which is of course what we see. But on Viper, Safe was like, damn, look at me go. 57% first blood, despite of course usually running on those controller roles. Now, this is the Chinese region. Their regular season finished up, which means the playoffs are as follows. So FPX and Edward Gaming, those are the teams that got the buys, and well, the bracket works as it did elsewhere around the world, where these are knockout games, and then the upper semi-finals happen where the winner of these two respective series, they make it through straight away to Shanghai. And of course, you know, the Chinese region, they would love to play in front of that home crowd, right? So Edward should be fine to secure it. FPX as well would be the other heavy favourites really from the region. There's also, this is how the developments are going in the Pacific side. Big break, I've got to say, like the fact that PaperX are in the finals, T1 and Gen.G, they're locked in now, right? So DRX, they went down to Gen.G yesterday in a remarkable series, really. Like DRX, they started off so well here, 13-8, and it's just super tough for DRX the way this has worked out. Like these guys having, you know, been in a great position, obviously flashback steps away, and it's still, Bayon comes in, looks like they're going to be pretty good. But Gen.G, they bounce back, they 13-11 on the Sunset, then they 13-8 on the Ascent to close out the series. Like, Gen.G were, you know, obviously if they didn't make Shanghai, that would have been quite the story. But even DRX not making it, I guess, you know, there's 4 teams, 4 doesn't go into 3, there's only so much they could do. But, yeah, DRX going down to PaperX here and then losing to Gen.G is just really tough for them. And, you know, this is the thing with this format, right? We didn't see DRX play T1 in these playoffs, although in the regular season they did play and DRX won 2-1. So it's very plausible that DRX are the third best team in this region, right? Because sure, they've lost to PaperX, they've lost to Gen.G, but they beat T1 in the regular season. But yet, because of the way the brackets worked out, they're 4th. Even if they might be better than T1, potentially. Like, but, you know, T1 have done enough to obviously win. They beat Gen.G, therefore they deserve their triumph. And these are the 3 teams that are going to be at Masters Shanghai. And it's going to be several days until we see the conclusion here, of which it's going to be interesting, but it's not going to tell us that much apart from the team that's going to get the 3 circuit points towards, of course, the end of the year World Championship qualification. This is EMEA. Fnatic play Liquid again in a couple of days on May the 8th. Then the winner of that plays KC. The winner of Na'Vi Heretics played for esports. I think we looked at that one yesterday. And this then is the Americas, right? And we'll get on to how we got to this point in a second, because firstly, Cloud9 MIBR. This was a more interesting series than I expected, to be fair. But again, MIBR, they've done it again. They've not won a map of this entire stage. We know there's been comments on the Brazilians seeing exactly why they haven't been quite as strong as maybe we expected them to be. But to be fair, as soon as Loud were under some degree of pressure, all of a sudden, they start really turning it around. So MIBR, they bring this back to overtime, the game 1. They eventually lose it anyway. They lost the Icebox 14-12. The Sunset, they went down 39. And yeah, it doesn't really matter what anyone else does. Oxy's always going to get the plaudits. This guy is cracked out of his mind in 56-33. He actually dominated, I think, the stats for this stage. If we have a look at this real quick, Oxy's numbers, averaging this stage 300 ACS, which is absurd. Aspas has higher KD, and Aspas's KD is a 1.8, so what do you want to say about that? But Oxy was, in terms of impact, right up there, if not the most impactful player in the entire league right now in the Americas, and it's just interesting to see. If you'd have told me that Cloud9, Crew, and G2 were qualifying from that group over NRG and Sentinels, I'd have said you were kind of out of your mind, but this is of course exactly what happens. So then we got the big series, right? Loud G2, Sentinels did enough against Fury the other day to put themselves in a good position. If you guys aren't aware of the storyline, they needed to overcome a 26 rounds differential against G2 if they wanted to win this, and they needed Loud to 2-0 them, and they needed 100T to 2-0 NRG. Like, all the storylines were setting up perfectly. Sentinels got exactly what they needed, apart from the round count at the end, because Loud 13-11's G2 here on the game one. There was a couple of moments that maybe it could have been more convincing, but it was still possible, right? Because they needed 14 rounds. So if G2 simply delivered 2 rounds in the upcoming map of the series on the Icebox, then they would have still gone out of the tournament. And as Zelsa says, you know, absolutely rigged, not sure which or won't be silent. It's just frustrating for Sentinels because they were so close. I know that Sassy and others talked about this, that they were confident they could make it. And then they were like, well, you know, it's probably not going to happen, so let's not even think about it. And then all of a sudden, it becomes plausible again, and it was so close, right? So there was frustrations from Sentinels towards Loud, being like, come on, guys, like, you could have at least won that more convincingly for us. I think, honestly, Loud tried their best. Like, fair play. It did feel like Loud were actually trying to help Sentinels here in some regard. Okay, really, they were playing with their own best interest in mind. But it felt like they tried. And G2 just got crushed on the second map Icebox. Valen does say, well, you know, we were trying to win rather than trying to get 14 rounds, but it must have been playing on their mind, right? That especially the game 2, because they got 11 game 1 here on the binds, but then the game 2 Icebox is a 13-4, and I'm sure G2 were thinking like, damn, especially at this point, after round 10, when they're down like, you know, 8-2 at this point, they've got the 2 rounds, they need just 1 more, and at this point, like, they were just, you know, trying everything it takes. And the funny thing is, like, the Pistols, if the Pistols don't go G2's way, both of them on game 1, Sentinels probably make it to the playoffs here, which is crazy to think about. And as Zelsa says, just 2 rounds would have changed the entire picture here. So, yeah, as Sadak says, sorry, Sentinels, we tried, but it wasn't enough in the end. And yeah, Tenzi was watching, it's all over. So Sentinels, they didn't make it to the playoffs. This may prove to be better for Sen. We saw Sassy talk about this, that actually he would prefer not to be at Shanghai because therefore they can practice more, fix up their mistakes in time for the big one, the World Championship, before the second split gets underway after Shanghai. And to be honest, based on what people have said after Madrid, there might be some truth to that. But of course, you want to win all the internationals, and you want to get there, which obviously is not the case for Sentinels this time. They didn't even make the playoffs. So yeah, Sen eliminated from playoff contention. Viewership probably going to go down for the big one there in Shanghai. But we did see some reaction in terms of what the format could be. I thought this tweet from G2 was interesting, to say the least. I know people were saying, oh, I should delete this. It's, you know, not in good taste, which maybe is fair enough. But there were some comments on the format itself. This was also another round when they played Furia, when they got 1v3 the other day. If they don't lose this round, they, you know, because of course the bonus round next then of course was converted. So there's a good chance that if they don't lose this, they actually qualify for the playoffs. Now, even qualifying for the playoffs doesn't necessarily mean that much, just because they've got to get through the playoffs and qualify for Shanghai itself, right? Because just getting to playoffs doesn't guarantee anything. They would have got through in the weaker possible seeds. So they would have played a challenging game in the first round, probably against a team like Cloud9. We can see that here, actually, the Cloud9 versus G2 is the knockout round. 100T Loud is the knockout round from the other group. And then the winner of that plays Crew. The winner of this plays Leviathan. And then, of course, 3 of these teams qualify, as we saw elsewhere. But the big discussion has really been, could there have been another way to finalize this? These were the final standings in the respective groups, not here, but actually on this one. And as we see, we've got in Group Omega, Leviathan 4-1, 100T 3-2, Loud at 2-3. They beat the tiebreaker out on EG based on map win-loss, and then Fury, MIBR, both 0-5. On the other side, we've got a 3-way tie at 3-3, all of them with the same map differential at 7-6, but G2 have marginally the better rounds differential at plus 23 as opposed to plus 21% or plus 8 for NRG. So they're all good enough, you would think, potentially to make it through, but G2 technically did a better job against the same opposition than Sentinels or NRG did. But the debate would be, is this a fair way to decide? Is it clear that G2 are a better team than Sentinels or a better team than NRG based on this metric? I'm not so sure that it is, and there is an argument to say that, okay, if I think the map differential is probably fair enough. Like if G2 was 7-5 or, you know, 8-5 and Sentinels was 7-6, I think that's probably justified. When it comes down to rounds differential, I feel like there could be a better way, and this is when James of F suggests what he calls a relegation game, but actually think of it as like a tie tiebreaker, right? Now, if you were going to do a tiebreaker, you'd probably also have to somehow include NRG because they also had the same numbers. They just had a slightly weaker map count or round differential. Or you want to say, well, if there's a three-way tie, you take the top two or something, because this would be, I mean, imagine this, that there was actually a playoff game to decide who qualifies, which is probably what it should be, in my opinion, right? Instead of deciding it off these, round differentials, just play a best of one tiebreaker, and the winner goes through to the playoffs and the loser goes home. Like, I think that would be the better solution, but it seems like a lot of these decisions by Riot are absolutely made up on timings and the amount of time they have in the venue and all these other complications, because I think it's the same reason why we don't do a single round robin per stage. I think in an ideal world, we don't even have to bother with this format where we play Group A against Group O and then the other way around. Every team should play every other team in the split, and then the top 6 go to the playoffs, or even, the top 8 go to the playoffs, and then you go from there or whatever, going into Shanghai, whereas this way has annoyed a lot of people, and I think for good reason. And the other thing is that for the next split, we start from here again, because of course next split, they are going to play the rest of the teams, so everyone in Group A is going to play the other teams in Group A, the same for Group O, so that's what happens in the next split, of course, before the World Championship, but the kind of situation with Furia 0-5, that remains. So they will begin next split at 0-5, and then it goes from there. So this is what has actually been found here, that for the season playoffs after Stage 2, the top 6 teams from the entire regular season will advance. So effectively there are no reasons for these groups to even still exist. They existed and they served their purpose for now, but from now on, every team is going to play every other team they haven't yet played. They're going to add up the totals, and then the totals of that are going to contribute towards what happens for the end of season playoffs. But the frustrating thing is there that you're playing at single round robin over 2 splits across an entire period of several months when the relative strength of those teams will have changed considerably in that time. So I don't think it's especially fair. I don't think it's the best way to determine who the best teams are in the actual regions, and I'm not even sure the way that we currently do is either. Like, are Sentinels better than G2? Possibly. We don't know the answer, but because they lost out by 2 rounds, they don't make it, whereas there could have been a better option, I think. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Pretty dramatic stuff. There's going to be big updates to this, I'm sure, over the coming days and reaction as well. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.